This is Kevin Conroy, the voice of Batman.
This is George Newbern, the voice of Superman.
And you're listening to the DCAU Review, hosted by Cal and Liam.
Streaming at DCAUreview.com and on your favorite podcast app.
Welcome, everybody, to the DCAU Review, or should we say, the DCA Boo Reboo. We doubled up. Doubled up on the boos, because it is our spooky season episode. Technically, when this episode first airs, it'll be the day after Halloween, but it'll be a little bit of an evergreen topic to come back to perhaps on this year and in the future when spooky seasons of the future come to pass as well. But we decided to pick out 5 spooky episodes that are maybe worth a rewatch if you're a DCAU fan and you're still in the spooky mood this Halloween season.
That's right, Liam. While others may be turning to Santa Claus and ho 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 and mistletoe and presents and pretty girls and all that jazz, we're not quite ready to leave the spooky season, and perhaps our listeners are not either. So whether you're listening to this on the very first weekend that it dropped or some other time that you're in the spooky mood, we hope that you agree with us and find these episodes equally haunting and scary. Heck, we just spent an entire month, at least here at the time of recording, talking all about scary things, ghosts and vampires and guys that only speak using onomatopoeias and all of that.
Guys with hard to pronounce names if you have a podcast.
That's right, exactly. The most, only the scariest of the scary. But we didn't talk a single bit about the actual DCAU itself. And of course, the DCAU itself has plenty of opportunities, as we'll talk about today, for some really spooky, scary moments. So excited to list those with you today. Before we do, Liam, we will, of course, remind the good folks at home that this episode is brought to you by buymeacoffee.com/DCAU review. Head over to buymeacoffee.com/DCAU review. The best way to support the podcast. Maybe you want to support the podcast as a one-time supporter. That's not scary. It's not scary to do that. You're not making any commitment. It's a one-time thing, so not very scary to do that. Maybe you want to encourage us to review, I don't know, say Batman versus Dracula, just off the top of my head, not pulling that out of anywhere. Maybe that's something you'd like us to review next Halloween season. We've been talking about it for years and just can't find the motivation. So maybe, just maybe, there's some motivation lying around between your couch cushions that you want to share with us. You can become a one-time supporter of the podcast. Or heck, you know what? Maybe you don't trust yourself to remind us a year from now that you've so delightfully influenced us. Maybe you want to become a monthly supporter. Maybe you want to really go above and beyond and become a monthly supporter and get some bang for your buck. Well, if you become a monthly supporter of the podcast through buymeacoffee.com/DCAU review, you get some really great perks that come with each of your monthly support of the pod, regardless of whichever level you support us on. One of our 3 levels will do. But if you join us at our top tier, which is our super friend tier, you also get the best perk of them all. That's right, you get to be included in the actual episode that we record each and every week by asking us a question about whatever our topic is, or in this week's case, or whatever episode that we're reviewing. So whether you want to become a one-time supporter or become a monthly supporter, never fear, it's not that scary. Head over to buymeacoffee.com/DCAU review, and please support the podcast today.
Absolutely, Cal. We appreciate everybody for supporting our show, however you choose to do it. But with that bit of self-promotion out of the way, we will get into our list of 5 spooky episodes of the DCAU proper, rather, that we are going to revisit here today. And we'll have some notes, both some personal anecdotes about how maybe some of these episodes, while they may not stick out to our listeners as the scariest episodes, maybe there's a reason that they're on this list that we will get into a few personal anecdotes to explain. And kicking that off with none other than an episode we reviewed very early on in the podcast. That would be Feet of Clay, parts 1 and 2. And again, maybe if you're an adult here sitting here, you might not think clay Clayface is the scariest Batman villain, but as we could share here, there's a time in our household growing up where this episode in particular was a sight of fright for us, and maybe got tie-in comics and episodes that he appeared in were like banned for a while in our house because of how this one affected you.
Yeah, this one actually, I guess it probably predates your existence because of the year that this debuted in. But from my recollection, watching Feet of Clay, yes, very famously in our household growing up, got me banned from watching Batman the Animated Series for a time, and that was because, listen, you said, maybe it's not on people's list, and maybe on the surface you're like, okay, but there's a lot of creepy, spooky stuff about this episode. From
Oh
the
yeah.
the end of part one, where Matt Hagen gets force fed the Daggett Renew You
Hmm.
cream, and you just see him like the silhouettes of Roland Daggett's goons force feeding him this, and the gargling
Listen,
sounds of him
listen
drowning.
here. If the thought of getting force-fed Roland Daggett's cream doesn't scare you, you need to check your pulse, all right?
Oh man, that was just sitting right there. Sorry, I served it up to you. Yeah, I can't blame you for not avoiding that one. But yeah, it's if the if that in and of itself isn't spooky enough, the fact that the very next scene you have this like really disgusting shot of him in the rear view mirror, and he's just a lump of clay. That's pretty horrific
Hmm.
in and of itself. And then obviously we get the more like true to form Clayface in part two. He's got those jagged teeth. He looks like a pumpkin. I'm not gonna lie. Like you look at his head looks like a jack-o'-lantern.
Hmm.
Like it's pretty scary. And he's got those creepy teeth on top of it, and those soulless lensed eyes that have no irises at all, and just yellow, and his teeth are yellow, and it's just really, really gross looking. If that's not horrific enough for you, later in the episode, when after Clayface has a battle with Batman where his arms get chopped off mid-battle, Clayface is not Batman's. There's the scene where he confronts Roland Daggett on the talk show, and the transformation. Obviously, we've talked about it. Maybe TMS's opus, magnum opus, when it comes to
Hmm.
animation that they did for this show. But obviously, a lot of people talk about that final scene, and rightfully so, where Batman puts all the videotapes in, and he's doing all the transformation and the whirling and the spinning and all of that, and that is incredible and deservedly so. But I'd say a close second is that scene where he shows up as at this talk show, and you're obviously unaware that it's Matt Hagen, but he's dressed up as a larger female, and he's got this, he's kind of just he's verbally attacking Roland Daggett in the middle of this talk show, and Daggett tries to brush him off, and then you get this body horror transformation where this woman just transforms, her eyes start to change color, and she gets this, it's almost like I don't know, a swirling of everything, the essence of Clayface that just transforms her into the Clayface beast. And for whatever reason, the combination of all of that stuff gave me nightmares. I foolishly told our parents that the source of my nightmares must have been that episode, and because of that, for a period of time, I'm pretty sure our older sibling also was banned from watching Batman the Animated Series, despite there being a significant age difference there. He also was not allowed to watch for a period of time. So yeah, the DCAU review that almost never was because of this episode. So imagine that if the ban had stayed permanent from this show, you and I wouldn't be here talking about it.
How about that? Yeah, a little bit of a sliding doors moment there for our whole our whole lives, really, our whole nerdy lives. So yeah, that's a great one. And to your point, though, it may not be the most obvious choice for a BTOS episode to be on this list. Definitely some horrifying imagery across those two parts. So definitely a good one for our list here.
I'll just
And
add also, Liam, that this, if you want to hear our original review, this one's, I think, in line for a re-review at some point in the near future, especially since we might be able to get the director of part two on the show to talk about it at some point. But episode 36 of the podcast, yeah, some 300 plus episodes before our last regular episode, original time of recording. So yeah, that's quite a bit ago, probably like a 28-minute episode where we rush through and barely have time to appreciate the brilliance of the animation that I mentioned before. But check that out if you're interested. Episode 36, if you want to hear our scores for that one. That was, I believe, one of, if not the first 40 out of 40 that we gave scores to. You gave it a 40 out of 40. I was right there with the 38 out of 40. So despite some lackluster animation in part one, that episode stands up as one of the best that BTOS has to offer.
Absolutely. And we'll go from an embarrassing, or not necessarily embarrassing, but a funny little anecdote about you getting banned from one of the DCAU shows for a time to one that I believe I suffered at the hands of. And that would be we'll be jumping over to Batman Beyond. And we'll be talking about the episode Disappearing Ink, which I know we probably mentioned at the time we recorded that, which was quite a long time ago as well. I think back in the 40s we reviewed that
Episode
one. But
42 of
right. So not that long after we reviewed Feet of Clay originally.
Yep.
But yes, that episode famously, again, while Ink might not be the scariest Batman Beyond villain you can think of, there is a moment in that Disappearing Ink episode. Again, for folks who haven't watched that one in a while, there's that prison guard named Aaron who's sort of obsessed with Ink, and not just obsessed with her as a person, but wants to become like her. And so she begins to give him the chemicals that transformed her into to the metahuman shapeshifter gooey person that she is. But she kind of double crosses him, doesn't give him the full treatment, and as a result, he ends up as Bruce Wayne happens upon him, sort of half mutated. This horrifying image of Aaron begging for help as Bruce sees this horrifying monstrosity of science. It sent me running out of the room, famously, from or maybe upstairs from our basement where we were watching it on a Saturday morning as it aired, and I was nearly inconsolable by this, and as a result, yeah, our parents once again made the quick decision. Thankfully, it didn't involve a ban for you and our other siblings, but it did involve a quite long-term ban. I don't think I started watching Batman Beyond again until maybe it was in reruns on Cartoon Network, a year or two later. So there was a long time where I was just not able to or not allowed to watch Batman Beyond because of this episode. And like I said, it may not be a one that would normally be on the spooky season list, but that one scene, that one horrifying scene of poor Aaron half mutated into this blob man is it's a pretty haunting image, to say the least.
A lot of body horror, like I said, on this particular list here. So maybe we're just intrinsically more sensitive to that type or we were as kids. I don't know. I'm still not a fan of it, but yeah, that shot of him like half mutated, and then they also coupled it with like the voice effect that they put on him as he's like crawling towards Bruce as he enters in this. She only gave me half the formula. It's like, yeah, that's creepy. I get it. It's pretty disturbing. And I feel like, I mean, we could have picked probably a couple of the Batman Beyond episodes for this list here. That I think we talked about it when we started reviewing. A lot of those early episodes leaned heavily into the horror movie sort of motifs there, and that is definitely a jump scare type scene there. And interestingly, like I think this kind of proves how effective that was, not only for you as a child, but how much we appreciated it when we reviewed it. While we both only gave the episode a 31 out of 40, so on the higher end, but not quite the upper echelon, we both gave visuals and animation a 10 out of 10 for that episode.
Mm-hmm.
Again, you can check that out on episode 42 of the podcast if you want to hear it. But yeah, that scene where he's like melting, and then subsequently at the end when he's getting fed, like he's now in the place where he
Mm-hmm.
has to listen to the horror story, or he's swapped places now, and now somebody is sharing their entire life and sort of idolizing him and seeing him as this sounding board that he's forced to listen to in captivity. That also plays into that sort of horror element of, the Twilight Zone aspect of getting what he
Mm-hmm.
wished for in the end, and it not being anything that he actually wanted. So yeah, that one's pretty spooky. Again, we kind of went outside the box. We didn't go straight up like Scarecrow or one of those other
Mm-hmm.
ones that you would think. Maybe the Spellbinder episode could have been on here
Mm-hmm.
too, that first one, but
Giant bugs and zombies and all kinds of creepy crawlies in that one.
yeah, that one I feel like definitely there was a time where you weren't allowed to watch it, but we'll save that for save that maybe that anecdote for next year's spooky list. But yeah, this one definitely has some elements to it that are quite scarring and frightening.
Absolutely, yeah, it's a good shout with the sort of the Twilight Zone, careful what you wish for moral of that story too,
Mm.
because yeah, and then yeah, the sort of the postscript of it's the cycles repeating basically is there as well. So definitely some horror elements, even if it's wrapped up in really the reason everybody remembers that episode is because it's the one where Bruce puts on the cool robot suit, but
Mhm.
more importantly, I think of it as the episode that got me banned from watching Batman Beyond for 2 to 5 years. So
Yeah.
definitely a memorable one in our household and a spooky one that made it to our list. Moving right along, I would say this is maybe our first one on the list, or maybe our second one on the list that I would say is like a no brainer spooky one,
Hmm.
and that would be the two-part Justice League episode "Only a Dream," the one and only, at least the only speaking role episodes featuring the villain Doctor Destiny, the very classic Justice League villain from the comics here. Where in this version he's basically made into like a Freddy Krueger by way of Skeletor, I guess. Although
Hmm.
I think we researched this at the time. I think the Doctor Destiny design predates Masters of the Universe, so
Hmm.
incorrect to say that he's a ripoff of Skeletor, but that is certainly where the mind goes when you see a skeleton man in like a blue hood.
Hmm.
But yeah, suffice to say that episode has not only is it like you said, it's very much it's Nightmare on Elm Street, the supervillain version of a guy who can go into your dreams and pull out your greatest fears. We see him create a scenario for Superman where his powers just get stronger and stronger to the point he can't contain it. We see these images of him. He hugs Jimmy Olsen so hard he breaks him in half.
Oh.
He, they don't show exactly what happens, but as Lois Lane pulls his hands away from his eyes, we hear a scream and we see his eyes light up with heat vision. And then we see sort of the aftermath of whatever he does to the Daily Planet. It's this horrifying moment for Superman. And then we see John Stewart is sort of, I guess, struck with more of an existential crisis. The idea that he's lost touch with his old neighborhood, that he's just this space cop, alien policeman now. He's no longer Stewart the man anymore. We see the Flash stuck in a world where everything has slowed down to a crawl. And it appears that he's gone too fast for good now, and that he'll be sort of stuck living out his life before anyone else. He'll waste away before a second passes, basically. And then just a tried and true classic. We've got Shayera is afraid of small spaces, which same girl, same. Um, but yeah, we create this. On top of it, you have this horrifying image of this guy. Actually, his reveal into the Dr. Destiny persona. We see him visit his ex-wife in her home, and his skin literally falls off his face in the
Terrifying.
bedroom as he says, "I'm a doctor now and I'm going to perform some surgery."
Ooh.
before we hear another blood curdling scream. It's quite horrific. A lot of screaming, a lot of terrifying imagery, and then a pretty intense sort of Batman's the final girl here. He's the at the end of the slasher movie. He
Hmm.
makes it to the end and has to be the one to handle the killer and break the curse and put everyone back to normal with a little help from with a little psychic help from Jean, who is going into everybody's dreams to sort of free them that way. But we get this sort of this big dramatic showdown with Batman and Johnny, aka Dr. Destiny, where we see Dr. Destiny running at Batman, trying to stab him in the face with a syringe, and all kinds of other crazy imagery. But yeah, this one I think maybe fits the bill of what our listeners might suspect is a more traditionally spooky episode to talk about, just wall to wall with creepy and terrifying imagery.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can definitely tell this episode took many different influences from that horror movie genre, from some of the imagery to some of the ways of even being able to show or imply violence without showing the violence on the screen, which creates,
Mm-hmm.
more allows your imagination to run a little bit more wild as to what is actually happening on the screen or what is actually happening. As you said, really, really copying that formula of the big bad evil guy has taken out everybody else, and it's down to one person that is going to be responsible. Are they going to be able to stand up and ultimately defeat our villain? And thankfully, spoiler alert for this episode that we covered on episode 62 of the podcast. Again, a long time ago, another one that would be fun to look back at with a little more critical eye and thorough
Mm-hmm.
goings over in the future, perhaps. But yeah, this episode is scary. I remember watching it even as a teenager and like, this is kind of creepy. Like this guy's pretty spooky. So I enjoyed it. Yeah, we both enjoyed this episode. Also, our scores were 34 and 33 out of 40 respectively. So pretty high up there. Our another one that we both gave visuals and animation a 10 out of 10 for. So we clearly loved a lot of the things that they did in those homages and some of the just the scenes that you talked about, making those dreams feel like our characters were really experiencing them, and the terror and the pain that they were experiencing. I remember that Shaira, she's like being buried alive, and she's like scratching against the dirt, against the
Mm-hmm.
the what appears to be maybe a coffin or something that she's trying to scratch her way out of. She's being buried alive. Like, yeah, lots of great horror tropes in that, and one that certainly fits the traditional spooky season motif here. If you're looking for a good DCAU episode to put on during this season.
Absolutely, yeah, definitely some seminal stuff in here. There's a little, if you're a GL Hawk Girl shipper, it's a big important episode too. So there's a lot of fun stuff in this. But yeah, I love Jean being like the dream warrior who has to go to everybody to pull them out of these illusions, and then Dr. Destiny becomes a kaiju. They fight a giant like Godzilla size Dr. Destiny in one of their dreams at a certain point. They just do so many fun, wild things with that. And yes, so much creepy horror movie esque imagery in that one. So a definite watch for this spookiest of all seasons. And from there, we'll go to the next episode on our list here. And again, I don't know if this one, if you think about it, it makes sense, I think, though I don't necessarily know that this is an episode people think about all that often. And that is the episode of Superman, the animated series called The Hand of Fate. It's the first appearance in the DCAU of Dr. Fate. But really, more importantly, it has whether or not we liked that episode or not, which Cal, we'll get to our scores in a second here, back when we reviewed that one. But whether we liked it or not, as far as the visuals of that episode, the squid guy, one of many squid guy villains, creepy horror esque squid guy villains in the DCAU. The villain is Karkle. Not only does he take dominion of the Daily Planet, he begins to transform Lois and Jimmy and Perry White and all the other denizens of that office into these horrific sort of Lovecraftian creatures as well. So not the best episode, maybe, but some as far as spooky imagery, this one's pretty packed wall to wall with it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, Lois and Jimmy get turned into these like winged demon creatures. Superman's constantly under attack by these weird, I don't know if they're James Tucker or Glenn Murakami designs, but certainly fit either of their motif for this. We have Superman constantly being in pain and seemingly affected by the magic that's being hoisted upon him by this villainous Karkul. So yeah, that episode takes place also in like mostly inside the Daily Planet, which has this evil possession ring around it. There's witches that try and
Yeah,
do a
it's like a portal to
seance.
hell or something. Like
Yeah, they try and do a seance outside of
that's right.
the Daily Planet. Dan Turpin is having none of it and isn't too happy, but ultimately needs enlists one of these witches to help him out. So yeah, it is a weird, creepy episode. The villains. We'll talk about here. In general, yes, we were not fans of this episode, but it didn't have anything to do with the visuals because we look at those scores. I gave it a 9 and you gave it a 10. So it looks creepy. There's a lot of weird looking stuff that happens in this episode. Creatures that change into other creatures and phase in and out. And like I said, eventually we get Lois and Jimmy, speaking of body horror, being transformed into these these demon creatures. Lois keeps her hair, which I think is the funniest bit. Yeah, so she's easily recognizable. But yeah, some really creepy looking stuff with this. But yeah, we didn't love the episode. This might be one of the biggest discrepancies in the history of the DCAU review. You gave it a 27 out of 40. I gave it a 21 out of 40.
Wow.
And I had a negative bonus point for the sound engineering. If I recall, our biggest complaint was that it was impossible to be able to understand some of the villains and the heroes in the final scenes when they talked, and it just was not mixed very well with the music and all that. So that was our biggest complaint for the episode, from my recollection. Maybe not one that I would put at the top of the list to revisit outside of looking for one that's a little bit more spooky or dark or scary looking.
Mm-hmm.
But hey, you know what? Demons from hell attacking Metropolis and transforming several of Superman's closest pals into these winged demon creatures certainly sounds like a recipe for a spooky time.
Absolutely. I feel like other than like we already talked about the wacky creatures, those like manta ray things, that are zipping around. The thing that sticks out to me is right at the end when Superman has to like go down into the portal to whatever the magic thing you do to the MacGuffin to fix it. You throw a thing into the thing. But and there's this, it's just it's like it's all dark, and then all of a sudden these big green eyes and this mouth that's lit up by green with these sharp fang teeth like starts chasing after Superman. I remember that image in particular. That might be the only image from this episode I had seen until maybe we got the DVDs of this show. Because this was definitely one. I think this might be one that you or our older siblings just preemptively said like, you're not watching this one because you will get scared.
We did not want to get further banned from watching
right.
this.
You could not risk further bans from Superman or Batman Beyond. So
Right.
I do remember seeing just that green face chasing after Superman at the very end of the episode. That might be the only thing I watched on this episode as it aired. But yes, that is definitely some great spooky imagery in that one, even if it's not a home run of an episode as a whole. And then I will say, Cal, we do have one last one that's kind of a funny one to end on, but we do have an honorable mention for our what we would call a modern day horror, and that's really the modern day horror that's been inflicted on us by our own listeners when they made us review the Underdwellers for a second time. Not much that's really that spooky in that episode, but
I
boy,
don't know about that.
felt like a horror movie when we had to watch it a second time.
Yeah, I would not disagreement alarm worthy because I'm not editing it in this episode. I dare say, I dare say that we found some really strange, odd undertones for the general idea of a supervillain who has detained and manipulated a bunch of children to be his work slaves. Like, seems 2025, that's not going to fly as a
Mhm.
cartoon anywhere, nor should it. So it's just uncomfortable and not one we like to talk about. So gosh darn it, we found a way for the third time to talk about the Underdwellers. Check out our review of those episodes if you would like to. The funnier one is episode 252. That was the most recent episode, but if you, that was the re-review. But if you want to check out our original review also, check out episode 6 of the podcast in the archives.
We were so close to re-reviewing Heart of Ice that week, and then the guys from Watchtower Database and some of our other listeners led a harassment campaign to get Underdwellers to win in the votes, and that's how we had to review that. So we did that under protest and out of spite. We reviewed the Underdwellers for a second time. So
And that's why we're no longer on the Watchtower database. I kid,
that's
I
it.
kid, I kid, I kid.
But also, sure, that's canon. If anybody asks, that is the reason, because that's funny. But we'll round it out. This is a much lighter hearted choice, I think, Cal, for our last one. But we'll tell we'll tell the listeners why it's on there, and that is the Static Shock season 1 episode Grounded. And you might be thinking, if you recognize that title and remember that episode, you might be like, Cal and Liam, that episode is about Static fighting like a big green amoeba blob thing. There's nothing scary about that episode. So, Cal, why are we talking about this? Why is this on the spooky season list?
Well, Liam, I'm so glad that you asked. Episode 184, if you're really interested in finding out. But that's because we refer to this as the Scooby-Doo episode of Static Shock. And maybe it's not, again, we're leaning heavily into the lighthearted aspect of the Halloween season here. You know, obviously Scooby-Doo, legendary. The whole premise of that show is it's, lighthearted, spooky, scary. All the monsters turn out to be
Mhm.
people in masks and have a fine explanation at the end. But there's a little bit of scariness along the way. Ruh-roh raggy. But in this case, this whole episode feels like an homage to Scooby-Doo with a strange janitor. We have like chase sequences that happen across our screens from right to left that give a perfect homage to the Scooby-Doo. And we even have 45 to 50-year-olds playing teenagers in our voice cast. So it was a great homage that would not be lost on us when it comes to the love for Scooby-Doo. It could be felt in the midst of the production, I feel like, of that particular episode, despite the fact that it doesn't quite fit our mold here for being actually scary and spooky. The idea of them giving all of these visual and perhaps vocal homages to such a legendary show that revolves around fear and at least in a lighthearted way, some spookiness there. We had to put this on the list.
Yeah, there's even like there's like a cranky janitor character, which I think at the time we reviewed it in that episode, we're like, well, this guy has to turn out to be the monster, right?
Right, right.
Which is not the case,
No,
as far as I can remember.
he's a red herring. Yeah.
There's just but yeah, it absolutely fits the Scooby Doo motif in that way, and yeah, there's complete with them running around the school at the end, being chased by the big monster. It is quite a bit of fun, lighthearted fun. Those Static season 1 episodes, sometimes there's not a lot to sink our teeth into. So the fact that that one has such a memorable this kind of homage to those Hanna-Barbera Scooby-Doo cartoons is a great deal of fun. So if you're someone like me and maybe like Cal and like a lot of our listeners who don't actually like being scared, who don't actually really like horror movies or creepy imagery, this might be a lighthearted affair to throw on if you can find Static Shock streaming anywhere, or I mean, I think you can still buy this digitally. Maybe that might be the only way to legally consume Static Shock right now, or if you have the old DVDs, perhaps. But regardless, this is our deep cut entry on here. But we thought it would be fun since we were picking five to pick five different DCAU shows to talk about on that one. So yeah, that rounds out our five spooky episodes that you should watch as we head to the tail end of the spooky season here. I had a lot of fun. Would love to hear from you, the listeners. What are your favorite spooky episodes of the DCAU, or really any DC cartoon that you can think of? What episodes do you watch this time of year? We watched that Brave and the Bold episode where Batman's a vampire. That was fun. I'm sure there's plenty of other spooky DC cartoons. Is there a Super Friends or something we should watch next year for Halloween? Definitely let us know what you make part of your Halloween spooky season traditions when it comes to the DCAU. We'd love to hear from you. You can let us know that by contacting us on the social medias. We are at DCAU Review everywhere, although the ones that we use the most frequently, the ones where you'll get the quickest response, will probably be Twitter/X and our Instagram page. Definitely let us know there. That's a great free way to support us, is to follow us on the socials. Another great free way to support us is, of course, to subscribe to us wherever you listen to your podcasts. Make sure you're following, subscribing. If the app lets you rate the show, give us 5 stars. If it lets you write a review, write a review. And in fact, if you write a review on Apple Podcasts, we will read it out on the show. If it's 5 stars, we will read out a 5 star review on the podcast and even send you a little gift. So there's another little incentive to do that. That's a free way to support us. We appreciate folks who do. You can also check the show notes, find the link to our YouTube channel where we are now hosting after we quit the Pod Tower, after the Watchtower Database guys made us be the Underdwellers a second time, as mentioned.
Look, they're bullies, all right? They bullied us into it.
As is now official DCAU show canon. That's the reason that we're not on the Pod Tower anymore. So go ahead and subscribe to our new YouTube channel. I think we're nearing another milestone of subscribers, and the more we get, then we can start monetizing that channel. So even if you don't really listen to your podcasts on YouTube, that's a great free way to support us. If you want to support us in a monetary fashion, there's a couple ways to do that. Cal already talked about buymeacoffee.com/DCAU review, where you can be a one-time supporter or become a monthly supporter and even get cool bonus things like asking a question on the show. And of course, you can also check out in the show notes our store page, where you can find shirts, hats, mugs, and other things inspired by the silly, funny stuff that we've said over the 370 some episodes that we've done so far. And with that in mind, Cal, as we look forward to the rest of the month of November here, let's take a look at what we'll be reviewing for the rest of the month.
That's right, Liam. And believe it or not, the month of November is going to be one to remember. Hey, that rhymes. A November to remember, because we will be wrapping up another show here on the podcast. We haven't wrapped up that many thus far. Actually, only one officially have we ended, and that was the original Batman the Animated Series, which we wrapped up earlier this year. Well, actually late last year, we wrapped that episode up. So our yearly wrap up comes once again next month. So we're headed back to the future, Liam.
The future, Cal?
That's right, Liam. 50 years from now, whatever now is, or, whatever your loose cannon looks like there for when Batman Beyond takes place. We're headed back for a month stay in the future. We're hanging out with our final episode of Batman Beyond. We'll review some Zeta Project episodes too. And then we got a couple other memorable surprises since we're wrapping up our stay with Batman Beyond, which we are kicking off. That's right, our momentous final edition, at least new review of Batman Beyond takes place next week with the final episode of the series. We'll talk a little bit about how this became the final episode. Maybe share some anecdotes about how we never actually saw this episode because of how the airing of it happened here in the U.S. until we got the DVDs. Lots of stuff to talk about here because and to be honest, haven't seen this one a whole ton because of the distribution issues. So excited to talk about the final episode of the series, Unmasked, of Batman Beyond next week.
Absolutely, Cal. Can't wait to it's the beginning of the end, at least for our original Batman Beyond reviews. And hey, we're ticking down the clock on those Zetas too. So something to celebrate and something to be maybe a little bit wistful about when we get to that final Beyond episode. Excited to talk about, as you said, an episode we really haven't seen that many times, at least not as many as some of the earlier episodes of the series. So excited to see how this fits as a finale to one of the seminal DCAU shows. Can't wait to talk about all of that next week. But until then, I'm Liam.
And I'm Cal.
And we'll talk to you on the next episode of DCAU.
Bye.